Let me talk to you about how you can use your environment to your advantage when walking your reactive dog.
So today I want to talk to you about how distance is your friend when it comes to training dogs. There is a traffic light system that generally gets used. Green being you're in a safe zone, your dog is going to take treats or interact with you and have no real issue whatsoever. You've got the amber zone, which your dog starts to be a bit more acutely aware of what's going on, and the trigger in itself may still respond to some cues. Maybe a little bit of pressure and guidance is needed on the lead. Maybe they'll interact with you in a playing manner. However, they may suddenly get distracted and look over at the trigger again. And then you've got the red zone, and that's when you're a bit too close to the trigger, and that's when your dog suddenly erupts into a growl, bark, lunge, and their whole demeanor and body language change. So I'm going to try and explain that through my lovely drawing here. So this is you with your dog, and you're sort of in the green zone here. You're in a happy space. Your dog's responding to you taking treats. You decide to get closer to the dog, or that dog gets closer to you, and that distance closes down. And then you start to be in the amber zone. I didn't have an amber pen, so I've used blue. But you're in the amber zone, and this is where your dog is acutely aware of the other dog or the trigger, and their body language changes. They may stiffen up a little bit. You can see they're not being as relaxed. They're not really taking as much food, and you're having to work a little bit harder to guide them to the behavior that you want. So that distance gets closer and closer to the trigger, and that's when you're in the red zone. At which point your dog has already clocked onto it, started to fixate, maybe even growl, maybe even bark, maybe even lunge at this dog or this trigger. In this point, you're going to have to manage a lot more behavior and ultimately bring back in a bit more distance to be able to get back into the amber zone or even the green zone to be able to reduce your dog's unwanted behavior in that moment. So what I would do when it comes to using distance is I would start to spiral closer to the trigger and get closer to the point where I'm only advancing when my dog is in a good state of mind. In that moment, what you're doing in doing the spiraling motion is you are getting closer to the trigger, but then going away just as your dog's body language starts to change, but going back into going closer to the trigger. This isn't then avoidance, and we're not then just avoiding the situation. We're giving your dog time to relax and reset before we go back into facing that stress. Remember, going through stress is important for dogs' learning and development. So it's crucial that we take it slow at this point. If we rush this and try to spiral real quick and get close to the dog in a short space of time, you're only going to end up with your dog erupting anyway, and then they're not learning anything. So take it slow and take it steady. You may not get close to this trigger in the first rep of this, but just making that advance closer and closer, and then being able to break away back into the green zone where you can then heavily reward with play or treats is going to be absolute fantastic for you and your dog and your training. So use distance to your advantage and see how it changes your dog's perception of its triggers.